Hello, my name is Pam Cameron. I'm the author of Sport, Shipdog of the Great Lakes. Thank you to the Library of Michigan for including Sport on the 2020 Michigan Notable Book Award list. It was a happy time when we heard that Sport had received that award, but also it was an acknowledgement that historical fiction for children is important and I hope fun to read. This year, even adults have talked to me a lot of how they enjoy the book. So thank you for everyone's support. In a few minutes, I'll share some of the stories about Sport, a little bit about the research, and for sure, the illustrations that Renee Grafe created for the book. And of course, here's the cover with a ship, a lighthouse, and a smiling Sport. Several years ago, my husband and I were getting ready to be volunteer lighthouse keepers at a light in Michigan. And we knew we were not experts about lighthouses, but perhaps we should read a bit so we would be able to answer some questions given by the visitors to the light where we were going to be. And in one book, I found several paragraphs about a dog named Sport who lived on a lighthouse tender from 1914 to 1926. At that time, I did not even know what a lighthouse tender was. In a few minutes, I'll share what a tender was and how it was important for Great Lakes navigation. I felt there was just enough information, and I hoped there would be enough more, and there was, to write a children's book. Now, we know that Sport was rescued in the Milwaukee River in 1914, and he was rescued by a crewman from the lighthouse tender, the Hyacinth. Now, we know he was a puppy, and that's all it took for Renee to create this image of Sport's rescue. Here's Albert Collins reaching down, pulling Sport up, and here is the Hyacinth part of it. Three crewmen are looking down and watching. And they brought Sport back to the ship. I imagined what happened when they brought that little puppy back to the ship. Here's Renee's beautiful illustration of some of the crew gathered round, and an officer holding Sport, and it looks like they've toweled him dry. And they're thinking, could we use a ship dog? They might not have known, but we know now, Sport was part Newfoundland. He was a Newfie, so excellent water dog, excellent ship dog, and they have a double coat, which is important if a dog is out in the water. They took Sport on, and that's when he was named Sport. Now, the ship that Sport lived on, as I said, was a lighthouse tender. Those were the ships that took all the supplies to the lighthouses. They also kept buoys going, they kept range lights going, and they had lots of things to bring to all those lights, in this case on the Great Lake, on Lake Michigan. Because the Hyacinth that Sport was on, the territory was all of Lake Michigan, all the way up to the Straits, and that's a big area. A lot of lights were there. And here's a photograph of the Hyacinth, so we get a historical view of it. It had its name, of course, right there, but I think it's really fun is there was a brass lighthouse affixed to every lighthouse tender, and these tenders were also on the Atlantic coast and Pacific coasts and some on the Mississippi River, and that, of course, indicated it was part of the lighthouse service. It was helping lighthouses. Now, it would have brought lots of supplies, fuel. Lots of different types of fuel were needed at a lighthouse, for the lantern, to keeping the lighthouse where the family lived warm. They also would have brought building supplies if a small outbuilding had to be built, perhaps some foghorn technology. They also brought, for sure, household items. Food and the mail would have been delivered by the tender. The tender also transported a cabinet of library books to families that were at light stations. Now, the ship, the Hyacinth, was built in 1903 in Port Huron, Michigan. So it was built in Michigan. That's pretty nice to know. It was 160 feet long and 28 feet wide. I'll share in a minute sports adventures.